bertemu kembali dan anda masih lagi menyaksikan Buletin Awani Khas sempena dengan pengumuman GTP 2. Dan seperti mana yang diberitahu oleh rakan tugas saya di KLCC Malina Manaf, NKRA Rasuah dijangka akan diberi perhatian yang cukup orang kata lebih pada kali ini, dan untuk itu kita bersama Datuk Akbar Sata, pakar jenayah yang berada di talian ketika ini. Datuk.
Ya, Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam, Datuk. Tadi seperti yang saya cakap, Datuk, seperti Marina kawan saya cakap, NKRA Rasuah, membasmi rasuah dijangka akan mendapat perhatian yang orang kata agak signifikan pada GTP 2 kali ini. Okey, Datuk, mungkin expectation Datuk, apa harapan Datuk dalam NKRA menangani masalah rasuah?
Yang pertama, saya ingin mengucapkan ribuan terima kasih dan tahniah kepada SPRM lah kerana telah menjalankan tugas dengan baik bersama-sama dengan kumpulan NKRA lah, ya. Kerana banyak juga pembaruan yang telah dibuat, terutama sekali dengan ada penubuhan 8 buah mahkamah khas, ya. Dan ini mempercepatkan lagi menjalankan bicara, ya. Apa yang mustahak ialah yang terbaik ialah kita perlu beri tumpuan kepada indeks persepsi rasuah, ya, iaitu tahun lepas kita berada di tahap ke-60. Saya harap tahun ini kita akan improve, ya, supaya dapat turun daripada 60. Kerana kalau kita tengok pada tahun 2003 kita dapati bahawa negara kita berada di tangga 37, ya, negara yang kurang rasuah di dunia. Dan saya pendapat di samping tangkapan yang dibuat terhadap ikan kecil, ya, tindakan membenteras ikan besar mesti diteruskan. Walaupun sudah ada bunga-bunga yang terjadi di GIC, ya, baru-baru ini, SPRM perlu, saya rasa lah, mempertingkatkan lagi pengawasan agar rasuah tidak lagi berterusan atau terus berlaku. Banyak juga cakap-cakap yang menuduh GIC masih terlibat dalam kegiatan yang tidak berintegriti. Saya harap ini tidak benar. Kerana jika ianya benar, ini akan memberi impak yang tidak baik kepada negara dan masyarakat luar. Pun begitu, saya rasa juga, ya, masih kita dengar lagi bahawa kontrak diberikan secara direct nego tanpa tender. Jadi saya rasa proses procurement yang diperkenalkan oleh kerajaan itu perlu dititik berat, dan syarikat-syarikat perlu mematuhi prosedur-prosedur yang telah ditetapkan. Situasi ini amat tidak baik dan boleh merosakkan imej negara juga, ya. Kajian barometer, ya, yang dijalankan oleh Transformasi International Malaysia, ya, pada 2011 dapati bahawa yang menunjukkan bahawa parti politik adalah di antara kedua tertinggi terlibat dalam rasuah. Jadi oleh itu TI Malaysia, ya, telah memperkenalkan IKRA Integriti Ahli Politik. IKRA ini adalah mustahak. Saya rasa IKRA ini adalah untuk dikhaskan kepada bakal calon yang akan bertanding dalam pilihan raya. Yeah. Jadi mereka apabila mereka mendaftar dalam online, ya, mereka akan berjanji tidak akan terlibat dalam menerima atau memberi rasuah dan sentiasa mengamal integriti. Saya rasa ini baik. Datuk. Cuma kini, ya, hanya 5 orang saja, Datuk, yang telah mengambil bahagian sejak penubuhan IKRA integriti ini, dan 2 hanya. Okey,
terima kasih, Datuk. Nampaknya kita sudah pun bersedia di KLCC, dan untuk itu kita terus bersama Datuk Seri Idris Jala, CEO pemandu di Pusat Komersial Kuala Lumpur. Silakan.
I want to talk about GTP 1 and what has been achieved, and also ETP, and then I look forward into the future to engage on what we intend to do on GTP 2. As you know, when we put up GTP 1, if you like, it was clearly declared to be a 3-year program in the year 2010, 2011, and 12. And so it will finish the 3-year program in December this year. So we now have to think about how do we take it forward into the next few years. As you know, the whole GTP started when the Prime Minister, Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak, came into office in April 2009. He declared that we will need to transform the country. And there were quite a lot of things he began to talk about. The big word that he described was the notion around transforming Malaysia. First of all, with the bumbung of that house, we call it, the Satu Malaysia. That means we must be united. I'm a fan of Chelsea. And that's why we won the European Champions League. I know the Chelsea fans are very happy about that, but the Man U folks are not too happy, and the Liverpool too. But the point was, we got rid of our coach, we got united. And that's how we won. So I think in any country, if you become united as a country, then that is the platform within which you can launch forward. That's why it was the first thing we did was to announce the idea of One Malaysia as a united country, that we can then begin to work together as a team moving forward. Then the GTP was announced as the way in which we will look at some specific areas. We had 5 cabinet workshops over the weekend to figure out what is it we intend to do going forward as a country in these 5 cabinet workshops. There were areas that we looked at. What were the areas that Rakyat felt we had to focus on? Where are the priority areas? And according to a lot of surveys that were conducted, public perception survey, there was a media analysis. That means all the newspaper reports in the media were analyzed from January up to May 2009. We also have the Merdeka polls. We have the cabinet polls themselves to tick the areas that concern the public the most. And those were the areas we kind of felt those become the areas of focus. We then arrived at the 6 NKRA, National Key Results Areas. Lately, we included one more, which is called the cost of living, because it became increasingly clear to us that the public was concerned about rising cost of living, particularly when it came to food. We had at that time, we had 240 members in the lab that we worked tirelessly for the month of October and November in 2009 to come with the first ideas of what we intend to do with all those 6+1 areas of NKRAs. We ran the open day in this very hall. We had a lot of people that came here. In fact, sorry, we had it in Sunway. We didn't have it here at that time. We found that in Sunway, there was a lot of people. It was overflowing. So we had to, now we learned better, so we now put it here. So we have a lot more space to do it here. And we had one in Kuching and also in KK. These were the feedback from the open day. The same session that we had, the 5,000 people that came to KL, and also Kuching and Kota Kinabalu. 84% of the Rakyat said they love the GTP. Very good. 75% of them agreed with the specific recommendations that were put out by the labs. That means majority of them liked the specific recommendation. To the question whether they were confident that we in the government could deliver this, 71% of them agreed that we could deliver it, but in 100 years. They didn't believe that the government could deliver it in the time that was set. Notice the last question, can you do it fast? Most of the public say cannot do. They've kind of felt that the government and civil servants, etc., we are too lembab, we are slow. So this feedback was brought to the cabinet, to the Prime Minister and KSN, the previous KSN, and the KSUs will begin to embrace this and recognize this being the challenge. The public has told us we need to run. We need to move very fast on these issues. So we then came up with the roadmap. We took comments from the public. There were lots of gifts of input from the public, and those we incorporated into this roadmap, and which the Prime Minister launched on the 28th of January 2010. We made sure there were 3 versions of this book. For Malaysians who are hard-working and avid readers, we gave them the very thick version. For the lazy Malaysians, we also have the executive summary. For the very lazy Malaysians, 6-minute video. Tak payah baca lah. You can just download and read the video, it is enough. In fact, we made it into cartoon form as well to make it much more readable. Still, the Malaysians, many Malaysians don't come and read the video. In fact, the last survey that we did was a lot of them, they talked about us giving direction, but when we give them the 3 version, not many Malaysians read it. By the way, that was the same story with Vision 2020. If you ask most Malaysians, we all agree with Vision 2020. If you ask them, can you tell me what's in Vision 2020? 95% cannot tell what's in Vision 2020, but they all like it. So I think the point here is that we still encourage Malaysians to come and participate in these events. And if you don't come to these events, come to the Pemandu website. The details are all downloadable. The results. I must first of all congratulate KSN and all the KSUs, the TKSUs and the DGs and all civil servants who have participated in implementing this. This is actually testimony to their work and also the work of the participating agencies. On urban public transport, in the year 2010, you can see the score is 107%. That means we achieved 7% on top of the set ambitious KPIs. Crime, 168% in 2010. And then 2011, you see the scores, etc. In the first year, the total achievement was 121%. That is very, very good in the first year. The second year, it was even better, 131%, based on the set KPIs. And then from January up to July this year, we are already hitting the targets. We already achieved 71% of the set KPIs. So very encouraging. So I'm really pleased to say today that when the public have said that we will do this in 100 years, it was quite clear that the response from the civil service was robust, that they rose to the challenge to deliver exactly as per the agreement. Let me just dwell on some very specific examples, not overall. Now I come to some segments, not all of it, because otherwise we will be here all day. So I just want to cover a few points. On urban public transport, in the Klang Valley, we have 6 million people in the Klang Valley now. By the year 2020, we expect this to rise to 10 million people. We reckon that if we don't improve urban public transport, the whole place will be congested by the year 2020. Malaysia, we are blessed. There is a lot of people with ability to own and possess, if you like, cars. We have 28 million people in our country, 11 million cars. We have 9 million motorcycles. We are just fractionally lower than USA in terms of vehicle ownership. So a lot of people actually in this country, we are the second highest vehicle ownership in the world, marginally behind the USA. Now there is about 500,000 new cars every day. And a lot of these are in Klang Valley actually. So our prediction is that if we don't radically change urban public transport within now, in the year 2020, this city will be choked. And so we're going to do something about this. In the short and medium term, we have agreed that there are a lot of things we need to do on the buses. So we have brought into the system, over the last 2.5 years, 478 new buses have been injected into Rapid KL fleet. We looked at various bus routes. As you know, the example, the chart that you see there, that's an example on the Khas highway. If you travel from Shah Alam, Taman Sri Muda, all the way to Pasar Seni, using the federal highway, that's 30 bus stops. The timing that we did at the time we were in the lab was it took people about 65 minutes to commute every day. And that's a lot of pain point to the riots. And so in the lab we concluded if we open a new bus route called the Bus Express Transit, same running from Sri Muda all the way to Pasar Seni, using the Khas highway because it's underutilized. We only have 4 bus stops. That will cut the journey time to 25 minutes. Instead of 65 minutes, 25 minutes. We did the same thing for the other areas. As you can see, we co-op together 8 BET routes that we introduced. In fact, we were able to carry more than 370,000 passengers that have benefited from this. So we're very pleased with this work so far. We brought in altogether 38 new KTM trains that are fully operational now. They will be fully operational rather by August 2012. And this has really greatly improved public transport. Nonetheless, there's still a long way to go. The efforts to further decongest Central Business District. I had mentioned at this very event in 2009. And I had told everyone, I joked about it. There were people in the public that told us at that time Pudu Raya was hell on earth. Because there were 1,000 buses that converged into Pudu Raya. And it was really, really congested. And so that place needed to be revamped. And so what we wanted to do was to make sure we decongest the Central Business District. Take as many of the buses out. So Bandar Tasik Selatan has been opened. 500 buses that were from the south southbound buses from Melaka and Johor, they don't come to Pudu Raya, but they terminate in Bandar Tasik Selatan. That decongests the Central Business District. We are working to build one in Gombak that should be ready in the fourth quarter of this year, and that will take out all the buses from the north, the eastbound, and they will all terminate there. So we'll do the connectivity from Pudu Raya so that we decongest the Central Business District. At the same time, as you know, we have revamped Pudu Central. If you go there now, I hope that you will conclude with me it's no longer hell on earth. I wouldn't say it's heaven on earth, but it's quite good. And I would say to those of you who have traveled to the UK, we have made Bandar Tasik Selatan the future look of how our terminal should look like. And I would say today that is as good as, if you like, better than Gatwick Airport. Because the way for the future is to make sure that our terminals are as good so that people that go to office will not need to drive, they can use then buses. It's okay to do that. Let me now change subject to education. Education is a key point that the public had told us to focus on. And so we did a lot of programs starting from preschool, primary school, secondary school, and then universities and colleges. So it's very important to do it the whole chain. From the preschool areas, the biggest difficulty that we saw at that time was only 60% of our children that get to primary one have been to preschool. 40% who have not been to preschool, they struggle with the curriculum because the curriculum is based on those who have attended preschool. So from that moment onward, it's a problem. So the solution is to open as many preschool classes so that a lot of our kids then can then benefit from preschools. We opened 3,000 altogether preschool classes, and 77,000 children have benefited from that together. We started to rank all the schools. We have 9,814 primary and secondary schools in the land, in Malaysia. So we have now taken the results of all the schools based on the academic scores of the students, which is 70% of the scores. 30% is based on extracurricular activities. So that's how we then graded the schools. We originally wanted to print the rank order of all the schools and make it available to the public. We had some principals that really didn't like this idea. Because, you know, can you imagine you are the principal of school number 9,814. And if you're the principal of that school, you know no parents will send the kids there. And so what was agreed was we do them in bands. Band 1 means the best schools. Band 7 means the worst performing schools. And so we then gave the ranking to all of the teachers. All the schools have the ranking in those bands. We then told them to give us a school improvement program per school. So every school need to tell us what are they going to do in that school to improve the quality of student outcome. And so it's called a School Improvement Program, SIP. We have a toolkit that covered 4 areas. Do something with the principal, do something with the teachers, get the parents to participate much more actively so that the students do the homework, and finally fix the curriculum and also the facilities in the school. Those were the 4 levers, if you like. The good news is, as a result of that, you see a big improvement. There is 44% decrease in the lowest performing schools, band 6 and 7. Many of the schools in Sabah and Sarawak have made big strides in student outcome, as well as even Orang Asli schools in Peninsular Malaysia. 27% increase in band 1 and 2. You can see a big shift, both in the year 2010, 2011, and 2012. So that's very encouraging. Let me now change gear to look at what we had planned to do under RBI, Rural Basic Infrastructure. We spent a lot of money in the last 2 years and a bit to improve rural infrastructure. We built the most kilometers of rural road over the last 2 years since independence. 1,780 kilometers rural roads, and that we reckon it's benefiting something like 2.2 million people. And 108,000, if you like, houses receive clean and treated water. 54,000 families have benefited from electricity, and then low-cost houses, 31,000. So altogether, we reckon that we've touched the lives of something like 3.2 million people very visibly I remember going with the Prime Minister to declare open one of the villages, you know, the electricity in a village in Sarawak. And the village, for you, those of you who don't know, the Prime Minister had to pronounce very carefully the name of the village because the village is La Chao. So we had to be very careful how you pronounce that. So every time he had to say very slowly. But when he declared open, the electricity, let there be light, and there was light. I can tell you, the folks, they were so ecstatic, you know, because this is very important. Whilst in Malaysia we had done a lot for the urban sector, we have to have a lot more effort now, focused to improve the plight of the folks in the rural areas. So these are very, very positive. On low-income household, we began looking at all the hardcore families in Malaysia, families that didn't have enough food to eat. We have 48,000 over of them. And those vulnerable poor, that was a priority. We reached out 58,000 of those families that did not have enough food to eat, and they were vulnerable poor. And so we reached out to them. At the same time, on the poor households, so that they can own homes. These are the effect of what has been done under the low-cost houses. And also women entrepreneurs were trained. On corruption, we had to do a lot more things with the system. I call it the basic building blocks, to make sure that we put the basic building blocks like building bricks against, putting a wall against corruption. The first one was to introduce for the first time the Whistleblower Protection Act. Today we have in Malaysia in force a Whistleblower Protection Act, so that anyone who has any evidence of anyone in this country can come forward and apply for protection under the law. They have protection by way of anonymity. That means your identity is not known. Of course, if you go and put it in the media, then we cannot protect you for that. Secondly, for criminal and civil liabilities, that's what the law then provides. We have 7 cases that are recorded today. So I think those people who have any evidence, I encourage them to come forward and put the evidence clearly under this program. We have 14 corruption courts that are specifically open to ensure that we hear corruption cases quickly, and 249 cases were already processed. And we have 743 corruption offenders. We put their photograph, their IC onto the MSCC's website. So all of these are what's called the naming and shaming. The more we name them and shame them, and hopefully others will become worried about doing a similar misconduct in the future. We have 132,000 integrity packs that we took from Transparency International and applied them, signed by the government agencies and the private sector too. 5,000 altogether government contracts award have been published on our website to be as transparent as we can get. So these are some of the early examples of successes. On cost of living, we introduced the 500 ringgit of cash assistance, which is popularly called BRIM, Bantuan Rakyat Satu Malaysia, because people were concerned about rising cost of living. But we made sure that this money is given to households whose income was lower than 3,000 per month, because these were the groups of people that were, if you like, heavily impacted by this. We also gave 200 ringgit book voucher for students. And so to reduce food costs, we had Satu Malaysia Rakyat Store, which is cream, and Menu Rakyat Satu Malaysia, affordable housing, which is being looked under Prima. A lot of these are relatively new because they did not have the same start at the other 6 NKRA, but these are relatively new, but they are coming in their own life too. Recently we had Prima, that means Taya. This is the Rakyat Satu Malaysia for the taxi drivers. Clinic Satu Malaysia and Kedai Kain Satu Malaysia. All of these were actually programs that come under the cost of living. Let me talk about crime now. I know it's a topical subject. The data that I want to show here is showing that in the year 2006, 2007, 8 and 9, crime was rising continuously over that period of time. That's why it became an NKRA. We have to deal with this. And so as a result of all of the work that was done, we were able to reduce overall crime, which is called index crime. The first year dropped by 15%, from 209,000 to 177,000, and it further dropped in 2011 to 157,000. That's a 15% drop in the first year, in 11% drop in the second year. For those people that want to know how many of these are happening on a daily basis, I translated this so that we know. In the year 2009, we had 209,000 incidents of crime in the whole year, divided by 365 days, that's 575 crime per day. Every day, the 575 incidents of crime. In the year 2010, there's 157,000 incidents of crime divided by 365 days. You see 465 incidents of crime per day. It's reduced. In 2011, we had 144,643 incidents of crime. Sorry, 157,000. So per day is 433. This year, from January up to now, up to the data I have is May, 419 per day. That means 63,221 incidents of crime divided by the number of days. That means per day, that's 419. Now, the story today is this. The facts, ladies and gentlemen, is clear. That the crime rates are coming down based on the facts. The fact that there are 10 reports in the newspapers yesterday, for example, compared to the same period 2 weeks ago, which is 2, it does not tell you the story whether it's rising. The fact of the matter is there are 419 per day. So the joke that I made, I wasn't a joke, the fact that I made was, if we publish stories at 419 incidents of crime per day in the newspaper, we have no other news. It's all about crime because it's not zero, it's 419. The fact of the matter is that it's come down from 575 incidents of crime per day to 419 per day. So we have a long way to go because it's not zero. We have to do a lot more to reduce this. We had a look at the insurance claims. This is the data from all insurance companies, the ISM Statistical Bulletin claims for the year 2010 and 2011. The insurance claims for theft has actually come down. And so you can see these are real data. So if your car is stolen, you ask for insurance claim, but it's dropped by 6.5% for the year 2010 and 2011.